I finally got a chance to go see Inside Out 2 last weekend, so let's review. Inside Out 2 follows Riley as she just turns 13, and of course the day comes that all parents dread when their child becomes 13 years old, which is puberty. Once puberty happens, that means some new emotions start to arise within Riley's brain, among all the other emotions that are already there. One of them is anxiety, and she thinks she knows what's best for Riley, and so she takes over. And so now it's up to Joy and the rest of the emotions to come together to get back to the control room and set Riley straight before she spirals out of control. Now, if you've seen my review of the first movie, you know I absolutely love it. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. It's one of my favorite animated films from the past decade, and it's one of my favorite Pixar films of all time. And so when they announced it, I was a bit skeptical because of the times we're living in which Disney is in a bit of a slump right now. But I've always thought that Inside Out always warrants itself for a sequel because, let's be real, in the first film, they hardly scratched the surface with the emotions. And so now with this new film, and since Riley is growing older, there's going to be some more new emotions that she will explore and that she will have to process. And now I am here to tell you that this is definitely a worthy sequel because it does expand on the whole Inside Out emotion mythology that's going on within Riley's head as she's getting older. I will say another thing that I was skeptical about, because this is something I definitely did not realize until afterwards, is that this film is not directed by Pete Docter, who made the first film. And Pete Docter, he's made so many other great Pixar films. But even without him, this movie still worked. Now, like I said, all the emotions from the first film are in this movie. Amy Poehler returns as the voice of joy. Phyllis Smith is the voice of sadness. Louis Black is the voice of anger. But Mindy Kaling and Bill Hader did not return as the voice of fear and disgust. This time we have Lisa Lapira as the voice of disgust and Tony Hale as the voice of fear. Now for disgust, I did notice off jump that it wasn't Mindy Kaling's voice, but I'd say Lisa, she did excellent job. Tony Hale, he was the one that I kind of didn't notice at first. In fact, him and Bill Hader, they almost provided the same voice for fear, but either way, he did a good job filling in for Bill Hader's shoes. But for the returning cast members, I'd say out of the three of them, I'd say Phyllis Smith, she's the one that kind of got, well, as the voice of sadness, I should say. But sadness, I felt like she kind of got pushed to the side a little bit to make way for the new emotions, which does make sense because we already went on her journey in the first film. So it's like, we don't need to explore anything else unless they find a creative way to do it. But if you can't, then just don't touch and just have sadness help move the plot forward. But as for the new emotions, we have anxiety, who's voiced by Maya Hawke, and I thought she did an excellent job with the voice work for this character. And anxiety is really the heart of this story for real. If the first film was about the yin and yang between joy and sadness, this film is about the yin and yang between joy and anxiety. And I thought this film did an excellent job at exploring anxiety and what that does to a person mentally and how they deal with it, and especially at a young age that Riley is at. Ayola Derby plays the voice of Envy, and she did excellent. I'm not going to pronounce this actress's name, but she plays the voice of N-U-N, and I basically just call it the emo emotion, but excellent work. Paul Walter Heiser plays the voice of Embarrassment, and he's probably my third favorite new emotion within this film, the first two being envy and anxiety. There's another emotion in this film that appears twice in the film, but they don't expand on, at least until Riley's much older. The other new emotion is nostalgia. I thought the nostalgia emotion for the brief moments that she was in the film was pretty hilarious because they tell her like, hey, don't go back. You're not supposed to come back for another 10 years, 2 graduations, and a best friend's wedding. And I'm like, yep, I can definitely relate to that emotion because we've all experienced nostalgia, and that's typically how nostalgia works sometimes. It goes without saying the animation in this film is excellent, but that is to be expected with every Pixar film, though with the first Inside Out, it did have a blend of different animation styles for a brief moment. And there's a moment where we see stuff that Riley has suppressed, including a crush on a video game character that I thought was pretty hilarious. And it was in the style of let's say the PlayStation 1 era style of video game graphics. I say kids will definitely love this movie, but they will appreciate it even more as they get older because, let's be real, this film and the last film is definitely pretty much there for you as you developed and get much older. And of course, the adults will definitely get this film. They will gravitate towards this film. They can definitely relate to it because we've all been through anxiety. You may be dealing with it right now, or you have a child that's dealing with anxiety. If the first film was about understanding your emotions, this film is about how your emotions can shape who you are. I will say the first film made me cry, but this one kind of didn't. But it did have a tear-jerking moment at the end that I'll admit did get to me a little bit. It didn't have me, crying. And so I'm like, but it's just like. But like I said, this may not be as good as the first film. It may not be as emotionally impactful as the first film, but it was still a worthy sequel that everybody should see and they will definitely identify with. This is the kind of stuff that I know Pixar is capable of, and I'm glad they gave it to us. I'm going to give Inside Out 2 the heart eyes emoji.